health. And get this last one that they said. Given the possibility that food with unintended changes may enter the marketplace despite pre-market safety mechanisms, i.e. Monsanto self-submitting their own safety data for a product they have an economic interest in, post-market surveillance of exposure and effects is needed. That's what the National Academy of Sciences. So has that been done? Is the FDA doing that? What do you think? So why is it that every time that you guys read in the media that this is the case? They didn't put this in, they didn't put this in, they didn't put this in. And if they're not doing this for your food, imagine what they're doing for all the other industries. So this is a very powerful quote here. Our entire agriculture industry is based on chemical inputs, but soil is not a chemistry set. This is a USDA official that works in the soil departments. It's a biological system. We've treated it like a chemistry set because the chemistry is easier to measure than the soil biology. There's a bunch of scientific articles about the toxicity issues of chemicals and GMOs. You don't hear about that, of course. They never cite these, only very rarely in the media. This was a campaign that we did with GMO Inside, if you want to hear more. This is a nonprofit that I also founded, that we did the campaign. We put 50,000 comments on their Facebook wall to get them to go non-GMO. This was Kashi. They were going along a 650 million clip. They dropped down to 400 million 2 years ago because they missed their brand promise to their customers. Here's about Campbells and General Mills. They bought Epic grass-fed protein. They bought Annie's. Those were General Mills acquisitions. And Campbell's is Plum. And now both they're growing their organic offerings and they're also now volunteering labeling their products with GMOs. So the big corporations are starting to shift there. Here's the thing about wines. There's Roundup now in all wines in California, even organics made by Monsanto. I'm not going to get into all of this because I'm running out of time, but what is the link between autism and the environment? This Davis professor thinks that needs to be investigated, but they're not investigating it. Here's at UC Davis. That'll be interesting when I present this at UC Davis in 2 days from now, right? I wonder what the students are going to say there. Why aren't they following up what the professor and research says there? So here's a whole thing about industrial agriculture, oceans, and oxygen supply. So this is probably the most important thing, if you can take one thing away in terms of the environment, is the relation between agriculture and soils and oceans. And I've written several articles on this. If you Google my name and EcoWatch, it'll go into this. This is a chief scientist at the National Oceanic Atmosphere Administration. Again, you can get this on some of my articles, but basically it tells a disturbing story. Our oceans are becoming more acidic. 30% of the plankton has gone away in the Indian Ocean in the last 30 years. So essentially, industrial agriculture, because it's the largest contributor to climate change, more so than Chevron and Exxon, the transportation industry combined, which, how many of you knew that fact? None of you. And what's the most important issue you think about today's climate change? But the number one contributor to the problem and the number one solution is not even being told. 2 years ago when I finally figured this out, I didn't even know this up until a couple years ago. I thought I was like, how is this possible? How do I know about this? Nobody else does. Now in the last few years, it's starting to find out. People like Michael Pollan, people are getting the word out. So more people are getting awareness on this. I want to take some time for some questions. These are just some principles of conservation that we can do. So there's actually, I like to say, so the oceans are starting to die because of how we grow our food and all the chemicals of burning coal. The good news is we have an app for that. And what do you think that app is? Regenerative agriculture. So through regenerative agriculture, we can take that carbon, we have too much in the atmosphere, and we can put it into the soil. And that essentially is the task of our generation of where we're at today. Either we do that, or most of the plankton will be dead in the ocean, there won't be any fish in the sea, and 2/3 of the oxygen supply in the planet will be gone within 30 years. This is not a 2100, San Francisco Bay is going to be like 2 feet above sea level and we can't drive on 101 sometimes. We're talking a little different, And the crazy part is 7 out of 10 Google searches have the name Kardashian in it. what the hell are we thinking? Is that going to help bring us happiness in a future, the Kardashians, right? But that's what people are Googling, you know. Seriously, we need to do better than that. And actually, cows are part of the problem today, and they can actually be part of the solution. That's another whole nother subject. Here are some of the articles, and some of the stuff you can get some of these from SlideShare. And don't believe, I want to say a thing, don't believe anything I've just told you. I want you to take it in and go and think and see if you can prove me wrong. Talk to other people. That's the one thing. Don't believe everything you hear. You need to decipher that and absorb it and then think about it. And I'll leave you, now that I've given you some rather challenging issues that are going on. Imagine healthy souls and a healthy future. And the only way we're going to change is we have to look at where we want to go and do this, but we have the opportunity to change the food system. I mean, look where we've come in 10 years, right? Organics wasn't even a sector really 10 years ago. It was a niche industry. It's really taken off. You look at solar. So we have the potential there. And so Nativa, that's part of our mission. You know, we're not only a business, but we also have a mission to revolutionize the way the world eats, and that's kind of why I sometimes like to joke that Nativa is an NGO that disguises a brand that makes money. But my finance team reminds me, John, you got to focus more on the last part. We need to make more money. You know, as an entrepreneur, you got to make money to fund your growth and fund the change. So you want to be focused on the mission, but you also got to focus on the bottom line. And sometimes if you focus too much on the mission and not on the bottom line, then you got problems. And if you focus too much on the bottom line and not on the mission, then you burn out your team and your customers don't think you're part of the solution. So glad to answer any questions any of you guys might have. I know I've kind of talked a bit rather fast, but go ahead.
You gave us some like pretty terrifying statistics, to be honest, and just said some pretty scary stuff. What's your honest outlook on what you think? Like, how you think this is all gonna end up? Like, do you think we're heading towards
Well, let me ask you this: before I share that? What about you? You just heard this. You have access to a lot of information. What do you think?
I don't know. I'm cautiously optimistic, but I just don't know enough about it. There's so much information to know fully what's going on. I know you probably don't even have access to all the stuff to know.
So I would say that okay, personally, I'll just tell you. 20 years ago, I've been doing this for over 30 years. I'm an environmental activist and entrepreneur. 20 years ago, I hit the wall and said things are really bleak. That like Team Organic, Team Solar is going to lose to the Monsantos and the Chevrons of the world, and I kind of had to deal with that on a personal level. I was pretty depressed and disillusioned. That was 20 years ago. And so then I just got up and said, okay, well, it's kind of like in basketball. You can be down by 12 or 15 points and go, we're probably going to lose, but the people you look at the Warriors, they can be down by 20 and they win, right? So, I just go, hey, I'm going to do the best that I can. But to kind of cut to the chase exactly, I think we have less than a decade to either make significant inroads, which means the Republican Party has to be on board with all of this. We can't just have 40% of the country just think that everybody in the coasts are this is like some sort of liberal or progressive or climate change is a conspiracy by General Electric and Goldman Sachs and carbon trading credits, or it's a geoengineering thing. There with all these, we have to move beyond that in 10 years. And if we don't, it's going to be a hard landing. Essentially, if we don't change this by 2046, National Geographic says every fish in the sea will be gone. So by somewhere in about 25 years, all the fish in the sea will be gone, and most of the oxygen will start going away, and most species will be leaving the planet in 30 to 40 years, 50 years. But all we got to do is take that carbon, put it into the soil. Believe me, it's actually not that difficult. We can do this. French government just adopted a plan to do it. There's a lot of people who are, but the challenge is, people like Elon Musk, he doesn't even know this about the carbon sequestration with soils, because I heard him talking, but he's super smart. There's just, You know, it's like people just need to, you know, people just don't have this information. They don't have the information, they can't make the decisions on this, you know. You know, I was at a farming conference and somebody said I scared the shit out of a bunch of people, and now they take it seriously. You know? You know, and sometimes I get depressed giving this talk. You know, I sometimes look back at people and go, "Oh my God, what did I just do to these people?" But like, I know this information, so I got to share it. You know.
Have you like had any threats from like Monsanto and companies like that after putting out your non-GMO?
Oh, do I have any threats or whatever? I mean, I have like there's a whole, Monsanto spends a couple $100 million, so they like, I mean, like you can Google my name and you can read a hit piece against me, you know. You know, as soon as I post articles, they come up and they have all these, you know, trolls and stuff, and they'll say a bunch of stupid things, and yeah, so, you know, not physically or anything like that, you know. But one of my allies is, how many people have heard about the Food Babe? So she's very popular on the internet. You want to follow her. She's posting a lot of this stuff, but she gets threats all the time. They post pictures of her of her house, inside her house, from like when it was used to be by some other owner, and say we know, you know. You know, they do really sexually, you know, degrading things about her. So they've set up all these different sites and stuff. So they're like trying to hack through there's so much disinformation right now in the social media, and that's what they're using to do that. So they have these trolls. They have like a nickname for me. They call me the Roo, supposedly, you know. And they'll post stuff and start attacking and send people over to our site, you know, make certain things. So it's, you know, it's like a game, right? To me, it's for survival life. They're just getting paid to go diss somebody, you know. I mean, it's power politics. It's welcome to, you know, that world. You go ahead.
With your specific products, you started with hemp. Is it because hemp, like as a crop, is
I mean, why did I start with hemp? The reason why I started with hemp was I wrote a book on hemp in the 90s, and I was a big advocate of hemp because I used to be an environmental activist around protecting forests, and so it's like, if you're going to destroy the forest, you're not going to cut down the trees, and so that's why I chose hemp. And that was my first product. And then coconut, because it's such a good cooking oil, and it's healthy for you. Yeah.
Is it true that hemp like conserves water, is less water consuming?
It's less water consuming than cotton, but it does like water. There's a lot of mistruths about hemp, unfortunately. It's not like this thing that's going to save the world. It's really important. I mean, it can be part of that, but it's not like this miracle crop that's going to. There's some hempsters who think it's going to be take over and be this miracle. You're going to have free gasoline on it or something. But.
What's your opinion on sort of like with the misguided information for customers, where like a health food company or brand gets bought by, like you see Annie's gets bought by General Mills, or like Sugar Juice gets invested in by Coca-Cola? Is that good or bad for your cause?
Yeah, you know, I mean, is UC Berkeley good or bad? You know, it kind of is, right? The best. That was very good. Funny thing is sometimes, like, I mean, I know the CEO of Annie's, we get together and have lunch, and they've actually been able to get more capital to change things. You know, maybe they can't be quite as radical, so it depends on the situation, but ultimately, if we can't get the largest corporations in the world to promote regenerative agriculture, how are we going to put the carbon in the soil? You know, at the same time, we don't want them all to be controlled, you know, but the reality is, it's hard. Like, you know, it's not easy to fund the growth. These entrepreneurs like myself, you know, it's like, I mean, you know, you get slammed up against the wall enough times, you know, with problems and loss. I mean, someone's suing us right now for selling coconut oil as organic, just like some nuisance lawsuits. $175,000 just in the legal budget for 90 days. I mean, I should be spending that money, you know, in marketing, but instead I have to spend it with some lawyers, and it's all just like a nuisance lawsuit. It's not based on, you know, it's just based on some arcane thing, and they can kind of get away with some class action lawsuit. That happens, the bigger you get, the more times. And so entrepreneurs you just get beaten down, you know. And these bigger corporations have that, you know. And then also, like, if we want to go to the next level, if we want to go to, let's say, $400 or $500 million a company, we need to invest $5 million in IT systems. So that's $5 million we can't spend in other things. So it's a challenge scaling companies in the natural food world, you know, and there's not necessarily long-term investment to support that always, you know. Any other questions? Well, good. One back here.
I guess in your opinion, like, why do you think this information isn't shared much? like information.
Have you ever
about-
seen The Matrix?
Yeah.
It basically, in my view, is as a society, we've been like, our grandparents have been like kind of brainwashed for a long time about how the world works. We're cut off from nature. That's the big thing. So we don't have this intuitive connection with nature like we are in the past. And I think today it's just the economics. But so you have to kind of look for the information. But maybe that sounds too conspiratorial. But you just need to learn and ask questions. But I mean, the history books have been. History books is his story. So kind of the power structure tells the narrative. And things. And what I learned when I was younger, when I went to school, you guys didn't learn because they took that out of the school books. So you have to just kind of have to learn and be a little more educated. But sorry if I gave you a little kind of a dose of reality you weren't expecting. But you can blame Mackenzie.
I love it. Awesome. Thank you so much.